Hello and welcome to our webinar here about differentiated orientation. We are glad to welcome Scott Finn from Southwestern College, where he is the counselor and career center coordinator. He has some more detail to share with us today, and we really greatly appreciate everyone who's here to join us. So help me welcome Scott, and we will move forward. We're going to spend about 20 minutes today talking about differentiated orientation at Southwestern, and then another 20 minutes or so on questions and answers, as well as some discussion. Hopefully all of you have some things you want to share or ask about, and then we'll spend the last bit of the webinar talking about reflection for each of you on the webinar and what action steps you might be able to take as you head back to your campus and work with your campus team. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Scott.
The first big piece was looking at, what is guided pathways, what best practices are already existing. If you've heard of the Bakersfield model, that's something that we're looking at as far as the mapping of the majors and the semester, by semester requirements. So one thing that we did was, since we became a guided pathways school, we wanted to make more of a unique branding effort, and we had our school faculty and students, sort of vote on a term, and so we came up with Jaguar Pathways as our brand for what we're doing. And then our piece, the piece that myself and our Dean of Admissions is working on, is the onboarding piece, which includes everything that has been talked about in the community of practice, the initial intake part. Differentiated orientation is what we're going to be talking about today, but really looking at what's worked best so far. And the two areas that we felt were really working well with us at Southwestern College is our outreach program. And so on our community of practice event, I spoke mostly about our outreach program. And then the other one that is really working, at our school in a limited capacity is our learning communities, and with the built-in sort of student mentoring. And so that's a success team approach. And if you've read about that particular way of working with incoming students, creating that welcoming environment, that's the two areas that we're really looking at, and we're getting more return on our efforts from those students that do go through the outreach process. And so if you've been looking at this slide, you can see that we have not high schools, we have our Southwestern College students at our local high schools, and you can see what they're available to help students with the registration and the onboarding process, and answer questions as far as what to expect. And so we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about that and give you an update of what we've done since then. So we can go to the next slide. And so the big thing with differentiated orientation is that we want to have smaller hands-on interaction with groups. And so you can see on the middle bullet there that we're looking at having separate orientations for our veteran students. Southwestern College has a large population of restorative justice students, people that are released from Donovan Prison right in our neighborhood. We're actually even teaching some classes at the Donovan facility. And so we want to welcome those particular students. Other populations, foster youth, CalWorks, they're already getting some kind of smaller orientation, but we want to really build that and work on reaching out to these populations in a more specific way, covering their needs and being able to track that information. We just had a workshop today with the MyPath program, also sponsored by the Chancellor's Office, and they were showing great ways to utilize the data from CCC Apply for nudging the students to take advantage of the services as well as continue on with the steps for matriculation. All right, we can go to the next slide. One thing that happened last week, and again, I don't know if anybody went to that. They had an education summit here in San Diego, sponsored and by Salesforce. Actually, maybe chime in if you heard about Salesforce, because I'm calling it the future is available now for really the whole student experience. And I don't know if you can see this slide too well, but it really encompasses everything from the point of interest to your college, to the application, the registration process, but also creating success teams, early alert strategies. There are even some data analytics for identifying at-risk populations. And then those students can be given extra special care and treatment. USD was one of the sponsors of the Salesforce event, and they talk about a survey that they give out within the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the semester to see how the students are acclimating. Now, again, that's a 4-year university, but I see there are lots of promises in using a product like this. And so I just wanted to throw that out there because as part of the, the pathway navigation proposal, we're doing a lot of investigation into what technology resources are available that could maybe assist us in, getting students all the way through from point of really interest all the way to graduation. So I just wanted to throw out, look at Salesforce and their education cloud. And it gives, again, a picture of what is working and what we all should consider as far as once we get students interested and enrolled on our campus, is assigning them to a mentor or success team. And so this slide, again, I took screenshots from the conference, but what I liked about this is a student portal. They can see their class schedule. They can see where they've been referred to follow up. And then their success team is right there in the middle where they could schedule their own appointments or email a member of their success team to really help them be successful in school. And so I really liked what they had to say at the Salesforce conference. So that's kind of another slide that I liked. And let's go to the next one. The other thing that we've been doing to really make sure we're going to provide the best orientations for our new students is we're doing a lot of focus groups. And so this is an actual picture that we took. We had about 15 students, and we asked them to reflect back on their onboarding experience or their registration experience. And so the orange Post-its were things that they remember about their experience, good or bad. And then the pink Post-its would be their suggestions for improvement or possible solutions. And we've now conducted 2 focus groups for students. And then we're also looking at how we can best streamline the efforts in helping students by having focus groups with our admissions and records staff, as well as all the frontline faculty and support staff that deal with students in our counseling building. And so these are some strategies, at least, that we're using to get the buy-in, not only from our students, but also from the members of our admissions and counseling and support services. You can go to the next slide. So here are some of our major outcomes so far. We have conducted several focus groups, as mentioned. The peers that are already entrenched in our high schools, we've run our orientation, I guess, end product or current product through them a few times to gather their suggestions. And all of this feedback for this first year, at least, is going to be used to determine the additional topics for orientation, as well as the student groups that we're going to reach out and provide more of an in-touch type experience. We can go to the next one. Again, we are the Jaguar Pathways team, and then our SOS team stands for Student Onboarding and Support. As I mentioned, I'm one of the co-chairs, but I'm also the Career Center coordinator. I do general counseling, and I'm spread very thin as far as my time and energy. And our Dean of Admissions also, she is carrying a lot of grievance and order procedures and things. And so with our funding this year, we're also looking to get a project coordinator. And so that announcement, we're going to hire someone part-time from within to help manage this product, end product, as far as the orientations. The other thing that we gathered from our feedback from our students is they don't want to read a whole lot. And so they like videos, and the type of video that I've witnessed in looking at some other best practices throughout the state are more day in the life video. Like, here is a counselor, follow this counselor as she takes this new student into her office and guides them. And so our videos, we're looking to make real splashy videos, maybe 2 to 3 minute videos. And we need a production company, I think, to really put that together. So we're looking to use some of our funds for that. And of course, the populations, as I've mentioned already. We can go to the next slide. And so some of the student groups so far that we've been trying to break down into smaller groups, you can see we have quite a few different groups. Our non-credit students, our adult school students, we have a large dreamer population, athletics. All of our learning communities, they get their own individualized orientation, but most of these other areas, there isn't something that they could do and receive more of a welcoming feel to our campus. And so that's one of the main approaches we're looking at. And then there are some standard topics that need to be covered, based on what the chancellor's office wants us to do in the orientation. But the biggest area right now is guided self-placement, and we still don't have really our handle on how we're going to put that in a 2-minute video, or what kind of resources we're going to make available for that piece. But we want to go a little bit deeper into financial aid and the Promise grant that we have, the importance of career services and career exploration. And then we're working on something called benchmarks for success. And so trying to break it up into smaller pieces as far as your first semester, maybe goals to set for your first year, and then what to look forward in your second year of college as far as getting ready for transfer, or getting job ready if you're going to get a summer internship. And so those are different topics that are not covered in our general orientation that we want to have available for students. So we can go to the next slide. And so how are we going to choose what information to put either online through a video experience? What kind of pieces are we going to have as an in-person component? And so we all believe that in-person is the best. but we can't be available sometimes on the weekends, evening. We can't really show students our resources at night for those students that work and can't get in here till after 7 o'clock. And so we have to sort of decide how and what pieces we're going to use to have available online. And then as far as the finances go for videography services, we probably won't be able to record a component for each of those areas that you saw on the previous slide. So we're going to have to prioritize that. Our group is meeting on a monthly basis in our large group, and then we've even broken down into just an orientation piece, just an intake piece. And so we're working to prioritize which ones we want to have recorded in a video format first. We obviously have to design and write the content for that, and sort of run that by students and make sure that's something that they're interested in. We will take all this information and put it together in the best way possible. We still haven't hired our new project coordinator, and then we have to put the videography services out for bid. So these are things that at least we're working on at the moment. We can go to the next slide. Okay, and so this was on the initial presentation, and the methodology and the belief is that first impressions really matter. And the way things are done now is students have to apply and sort of wait to receive a message of what they need to do next. We want to make that experience a lot better. And through the MyPath program that the Chancellor's Office is basically giving us, we're looking at beefing up our intake process and then being able to refer them to an orientation, a welcome video at the point of their application. And we even talked about putting access to the MyPath program as early as 10th grade in our high school, since we have our outreach peers already there so they can show that information. The big thing, the Chancellor's Office stated that it's now 71% of the students that fill out an application on CCC Apply never register for a class. And so we need to definitely make the in-reach to those students a lot better to get them to follow through on what they really want to do. We have our peer ambassadors in the high schools, and then through our FYE and some of our learning communities, we have a mentorship program, but we really want to scale that up, and we're looking to go into a success team mode in the very near future. So those are things that we know we want to do and things that we need to improve upon. All right, and the next one. You can see we have a huge group, and almost everyone that was on this list was in our meeting this morning. And we're very diverse as far as the departments that we work in, and we all have good ideas. And so just funneling that energy and sifting through what we can and cannot do in this next year ahead is going to be a challenge. But we're very excited and happy to keep working in this this project. All right, I think we have one more slide, and we're ready for questions.
I love Salesforce. I don't work for Salesforce, but I have used the software for many, many years. And it's one of the best that I've ever used because of its scalability, its ability to customize things on the fly, literally on the fly. It's not, I mean, granted, depending on the level of your knowledge and whatnot, you can have programmers doing Apex coding, but you can also have just regular admins with WYSIWYG menus kind of a thing, doing a lot of powerful stuff. So we were seriously able to track a lot of things about the student. And we were able to create integrations between Salesforce and Canvas and our ERP system. We got it to the point where, or we've beefed it up to the point where we can actually replace our ERP system, which is like the Ellucians of the world kind of a thing. So yeah, I love Salesforce. I wish I can be a spokesperson and spread the love.
And you're not using it at your current school, but you used to
No,
use.
I used to use it at, under a private institution. We were seriously a lean, mean recruiting machine. So we really knew how to use it. We really knew the value of, being in touch with the student in every stage of their life cycle. And what I mean by that is, it's not just from the minute they apply. It's way before that. From the minute they become a prospective student, then they become an actual inquiry, all the way through them becoming an alumni. So it was serious tracking, and it was very powerful.
Right, and I saw USD, really display how they're using it, and the tracking and the reporting and the data analytics for at-risk identification was just something that we don't even have anything close to it. And, if I had one wish, that would be something that I would shoot for, definitely.
Yeah, same here.
And I think a lot of the colleges are maybe still at that taking stock, place in terms of what their current practice is and gathering data and information to be able to move things forward. So that would be great to hear about. And maybe Scott, you could say a little bit more about that process for you. You did mention surveys and talking to students, and that getting some data from CCC Apply about that 71%. Is that one of the things that was driving some of this work on your campus?
Yeah, I mean, we really aren't utilizing our information from CCC Apply. It's being gathered, and we're in a Lucian school, so it's being put in to business objects, but it's not going much further than that as far as grouping students or putting up a plan of approaching the students and reaching back to them. And so, those are areas that take a lot of time, but, if you want to boost your enrollments or make students feel more welcome, I think it's important to give a response to a student, especially if they're sharing, some information that's, quite private on the CCC application.
This is Asma again. I'm sorry if this is coming out of ignorance, because I'm not really involved in this kind of a discussion and meetings and whatnot. So I'm curious, how did you guys come up with the differentiated orientation concept? Is that something that you guys came up with? Is this something that's being mandated? I just don't know, like, the background of it.
It's pretty much part of the guided pathways, project. They realize that students are in all different types of groups, and there's not a one-size-fits-all approach to reaching students. And so differentiated orientation could mean online versus face-to-face, and also the type of orientation that is received. Students who are, veterans, they want to hear about veterans resources, but the general student population that hasn't served in the military, they wouldn't need to know that. And so you have to look at the type
Right.
of student and the type of information that they really need to hear first.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Hi, this is Nicole from Cuyamaca, and sorry, my microphone on my computer isn't working. So I was trying to speak, but no one could hear me, so I called in. I wanted, well, now because I had to call in, but I wanted to address the initial earlier question about focus groups. So we have utilized focus groups in other areas on campus. We did use it to help determine what our meta majors or academic and career pathways were going to be. And we have discussed using meta majors for some of the pathway navigation work, including the differentiated orientation, to get more student feedback. We're doing a lot of our work in a pathway pillar team, and we do have a student representative that's included on that committee. And we have plans for the creation of a college orientation that would be kind of an all-college orientation, but that would also provide the differentiated pieces for the different student populations as well. So we're still in the design phase and exploration phase of what we're going to be doing for our differentiated orientation, but we definitely want to include the career exploration piece to a certain point, as well as information on our programs and services. And we're in the process of updating our online orientation so that it includes some of the changes that we've made with our self-directed placement.
That sounds good. Yeah. Do you plan to have like a full day event where all the students come to one gathering and then they have the option to go to a smaller breakout orientation?
Yes, that's the idea that we had, where we would actually provide something for all students. We've done this, we piloted something like this the last couple of years to see how it would work, and it worked really well. Bring everyone into a central location and then provide them for a generalized session, but then provide them the more specific details that they need unique to them in breakouts.
Mm-hmm. And was this on a weekend, like a Saturday?
We actually did it on an evening during a weekday between 4 and 7 p.m.
Wow. And how was your turnout?
The turnout was actually really good. We actually, I think the first year we may have had about 300 students, and in just the first year of new students coming in, and our target was only students who had currently enrolled, not students who had applied but not enrolled. And so looking to reach out to students who actually have applied but perhaps not enrolled, and pushing it kind of up towards the time where students need to register, because the idea was to get students an opportunity to talk to the discipline experts as well before they make those concrete decisions about what that first semester looks like, and to get a little bit of the career piece within the areas of the meta majors or the academic career pathways.
So you had faculty on hand then to talk about their specific disciplines as well?
Yes, we had faculty there. The faculty, were all asked to bring or provide some type of interactive activity to make sure that, it wasn't just them kind of doing a PowerPoint presentation, but maybe to make it a little fun and interactive. And then our outreach departments provided giveaways and so on for them to kind of have at their sessions or workshops. But we're looking at taking some of those pieces and trying to scale it, but also making some changes. So we're in kind of the initial, component. We had a little mini retreat this semester to kind of start mapping some things, but we need to bring in more voices and get more feedback and input, and then start looking at more of the long range planning.
Right. You really want to scale that up and have the capability of bringing in, groups much larger or multiple times. And so
Right.
That's the give and take, because asking the faculty to come every night for a month or something might be harder to do.
Exactly. We know that we have to do it pretty much in one day if we really want to get a broad commitment from faculty, and make sure that they're involved. But we may be able to spill it over into a couple of days, provided that we have like one segment of, academic career pathways represented one day and another segment of them represented another day. But we definitely don't expect we get faculty there for multiple days.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. How about other schools? What are you doing as far as an orientation on campus, like a face-to-face orientation?
Scott, while we're waiting, this is Svetlana. While we're waiting for people to respond, I wanted to see if you could also speak to kind of the costs and benefits of face-to-face versus online, because I know a lot of colleges have gone to online because it's more cost-effective. At the same time, it's not as personal, so we don't get as many students maybe responding or following through or getting the services they need and so forth. What was the discussion like at your campus when you were debating or discussing sort of how to do both?
Right. Well, with the funding formula and triple SP, we were able to finally get some added funding to provide face-to-face orientations with our students, our incoming high school students in particular. We get probably about 4,000 high school students going through the registration process. And so I've been here at Southwestern forever, and we used to even go out to the high schools and do the orientations after school, basically after their school. So we did that for multiple years. And then Svetlana, as you mentioned, due to funding, we had to do away with that, and we created our online orientation. Based on the funding and the technology that we had, it wasn't the best delivery. And so students would end up coming in frantic that they didn't, really get what we were covering in the orientation. And so a lot of time was spent sort of ironing out their questions and anxieties. And so now with triple SP, we are doing both. We probably have about 50% of our students go through an online orientation, and then we do a guided orientation for our high school students in the month of June. And we basically do 3 orientations. They're 2 hours each, 3 per day on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, followed up with a tour of the campus. And there they get to see where other special services are. And we think that is the best approach. But again, we're not reaching everybody. And we noticed, and we talked about it in our meeting today, that a lot of times parents want to go with their students. Mm-hmm. And we're not really able to have that much space in our career center when we do the orientation. So we are holding some separate like parent orientations. And it was mentioned in our group that these parents, though, they're potential students as well. And so they should almost be able to go through the orientation, because we might talk about ways for they could up their skills for work purposes or get back into the workplace. And so I spoke with our dean today, and so we're going to expand some evening orientations for both students and parents. We are going to have a Saturday orientation as well. And so, we've got to cover certain things, but we really want to cover the resources that'll keep them here. And so that's where the evolution has come in. And the funding is there, at least right now, to develop these resources online, and then to also pay extra for the counselors to do the workshops in the evening and at night. We also are doing some Spanish orientations as well, because the parents in our community, that's most of them, that's not everybody, but it's their first language, and it's more comfortable for them that way.
We've heard you talk a little bit about, the online versus the in-person orientation, obviously, and then certainly the specific orientations that exist for the different groups of students, veterans, and other groups that you mentioned. I'm just wondering, on your campus, and love to hear from others, kind of where does like the programmatic or the focus of the student, depending on their path, like how did those, is the programmatic orientation, like another layer of things you're focused on? Or do those kind of exist already once the student is kind of placed there or on that path?
Well, and for clarification, when you mean programmatic, is that more of the getting into school and the next steps, or are you talking more about specific majors?
Specific majors, like yes, which I'm leading to a question sort of like about engaging faculty and how they're part of orientation. And so I was wondering what happens with the specific majors, and do they get oriented? How does that type of orientation?
Right, and so with this Guided Pathways project and the support that we've gotten, campuses have been directed to create meta majors or fields of study. And so we have decided to call them fields of study. We have 12 specific fields of study, and then one's more of a general field of study. And then students will sort of explore within that field what majors are better for them. My approach, though, is to talk about career first, if at all possible. And so one thing we're looking at doing, and I've suggested, is for each of the fields of study, they create some kind of a marketing video or page on our website that talks about, if you're interested in health and safety and protective services, these are the areas that you need to explore. These are our programs that we offer. And then if you're looking for something that you want to complete in less than 2 years, talk about our certificate programs. And so what we've done during the year is we've had specific career days or career expos where just the faculty in health, for example, a few weeks ago, we were at our Otay Mesa campus and we bussed in high school students. And so they're exposed just to that one area, if that's the magnet school that they're part of. But then we host a regular all-day career expo, and then the faculty are invited to talk about their programs and what career paths are reached through following their program. And through Strong Workforce, we're able to sort of stipend the faculty to get involved. That's almost how we have to do it these days.
Sure.
I have a question for you, Scott. At Cuyamaca, we're kind of exploring the programmatic piece that Joy was referring to in terms of at what point in the career exploration process should the programs be involved, or how should they be involved? And I'm just curious to know if you've had that dialogue at Southwestern and kind of what that looks like. Our counseling faculty have had extensive discussions about what their thoughts are, and as they've developed their counseling model within Guided Pathways, they've been reluctant to say this is what instructional faculty should do, because they want them to be able to kind of own that and buy into what their role would be. So I'm just curious to know if your campus has been discussing that, or if any others that are on the call have been as well.
Yeah, that's the real difficult part right now, is to have the faculty really promoting, beyond just the subject that they're teaching. And it's tough. I think all we're doing now is we're rewriting our web pages for the programs that we offer, and we're getting a faculty perspective. We're trying to put more enticing images on our career education programs with videos, I guess, that have been created not from our campus, but more visual ways to talk about the career. But yeah, the faculty aren't too involved at this point. I mean, we have some faculty that are involved in our Guided Pathways project. They're very involved with the mapping piece, but as far as like a marketing presentation, not so much.
Well, what we really would like to do with these last remaining minutes is obviously hear from those of you on the call. We have a good, strong representation from Cuyamaca, and I know we have continuing ed here, but we really want to sort of reflect a little. You know, so many of these webinars can often be just listening, and we really appreciate the contributions and the questions, but it'd be great for you to kind of reflect and share kind of what you heard today that kind of aligns or resonates with the work that you're doing in this area, or the work you want to be doing in this area, and how you might think about adapting some of those strategies, talking through them with people on your campus team. Would love to hear any kind of reflection like that you can document for yourself and share here, but also go back with.
This is Nicole Jones again. I'll jump in and just say a couple of things that you shared, Scott, I think are things that, you know, we may be able to discuss in some of our meetings with regards to moving forward. I like your idea about the day in the life videos. I think that's very creative. We have been through our outreach team just for like orienting students to the college, doing small 2-minute segment videos, but to do those for career, I think would be really powerful and would help the students to be able to see you know, a little bit of what that is like. Another thing that you mentioned that I thought was something like, hey, you know, I don't know if we've actually considered that, this idea about the benchmark for success goals. I really like that. I think that's pretty significant to tie that in a way in which you kind of additional information that can help those students, you know, stay on track. So I like that.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah. I hope to have that in a visual format in the near future. I can share that. Okay, yeah, and for everybody that's here and listening and watching today, I have to put a plug in for WestEd. They have a wonderful resource library of best practices and literature and reports and research, all on this whole intake orientation and career exploration piece. And so I don't know if you've seen their link, but that's something maybe we could send out to everybody.
Yes, we will do that. Actually, it is linked here in the chat where Priscilla sent us to that note-taking guide. If you actually click there, it takes you to the note-taking guide, but it actually brings you into that library that you're referring to. So you can navigate from there. But when we, I will send out the link to everyone who's on the call. Thanks very much, Scott. We're still working on it. It's still a growing pool of resources that are intended to cover all of the work that's happening with the Strong Workforce Program. But we do have quite a few resources there in the onboarding area. So thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty extensive as it is, and it'll really continue to grow, I'm sure.
Great. Anyone else who's on the call want to focus on their reflection or next steps or anything that resonates? I know we're just about to wrap up here, but I just wanted to give one more chance.
Yeah, this is Guadalupe from Southwestern College, and I'm working with Scott directly in our team here. I was just asking a question in terms of face-to-face orientation to support our disproportionately impacted groups like restorative justice, our dreamer students, because I know the one tool is technology. However, for some of these groups, the face-to-face is what really makes them transition into apply and enroll and then seek support services to help them stay and persist. And I'd like to hear if any of the other campuses are initiating anything that will help bridge that gap.
Great question.
At Cuyamaca, we are going to have our differentiated orientation. This is Nicole Jones again, sorry. We're going to have it in various formats for various students. We're going to continue to have our online version available for any student that has the technology and has the ability to do the online orientations, but we are going to have face-to-face orientations. We're working within our restorative justice program with juveniles in the juvenile justice system, so we will be doing orientations at East Mesa Detention Facility and other facilities. So we're going to be addressing the needs of those students that really need that that personal contact and connection. So we do plan to do both for those students that really need it in those DI groups, but also we're going to offer, you know, the online and other, you know, kind of large scale orientations for other students as well. So we're trying to balance the needs of everyone.
I want to share for Southwestern College, we already do what are called open houses for our restorative justice, our LGBT pride students, and we now have a Dreamer Center that is in its first year of operation. And so we're going to pilot those initiatives as part of our summer orientation process for incoming high school students, and use that as an opportunity to do a prototype that we can now use for incoming students as a face-to-face option and bringing them into the admissions enrollment persistent process. So if any of you are willing to share, we'd be happy to share what we learned from our process and also continue to adjust it as we all learn from our students.
That's great. Yeah, Guadalupe, you're working really hard on all of our groups here on campus. It's great to have you.
That's great, and that's what this group is intended to be. This community of practice is an opportunity for all of you to share what you're doing, and we certainly, if you have any documentation or resources that you want to get out to the group, you know, certainly through Claudia or through us, we can get it out either into the resource library if that's appropriate, or just get it out by email to folks to share. So we're always willing to be a broker that way for you. And anything else anyone has before we go? Thank you again, Scott, for your energy and time and thoughtful questions and responses.
Yeah, good luck everybody with this. We're all working together. Your students have the same questions our students have, so the more we work together, the better we can serve all of our students. So keep up the good work, definitely.
Thanks, Scott.